So, hi everyone, I'm Natalie Wharton. I'm founder of Wharton Business Consulting. Previously, I was the head of culture change for a Big Four consultancy. So I've got over 20 years experience of helping businesses transform their organization and their whole of their workforce, mainly in financial services, but cutting across all other industries as well.
Thank you very much. Darryl, we lost you for a second, but you're back. So if you'd just like to introduce yourself, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Darryl Cooke. I'm the co-founder of gunnercooke, which is a law firm and professional services practice. Thank
you. Alastair, over to you. We have a lovely painting just over your shoulder.
Recently bought in France as well, actually. So yeah, very nice and lots very colourful. So hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on the time zone you're in. My name's Alastair. I am founder and chief dreamer at Flinder, which is an accounting, consulting, data analytics business born in London, the UK.
Super. Now, each of you has, worked in your business sector incredibly well, and yet you've decided to go and disrupt it, to come up with an innovative approach. And at the heart of that innovation has been the culture that you've created within the business. So the provision of services and the business culture for all of you have been completely hand in hand, which is why your approaches have been awarded by the Business Culture Awards. So Darryl, I'll start with you. When you've thought about disrupting the setup, how have you decided to challenge the status quo? Because come on, it's law. There's only one way of doing it, surely.
So it is a good. I think to start off in that process, you have to be dissatisfied clearly with what you'd been doing. And I was in the law in a very large traditional firms for some 25 years or so, and became dissatisfied with a number of things. One, I feel that the law wasn't serving its clients well. There's a kind of focus in traditional law firms on what they call PEP, which is profits per equity partner. And I felt the focus should be much more on clients. And that leads to lots of other decisions about how you treat people and look after people. There's a term developed in London, how young lawyers are treated, called bee stings. So it kind of all fits in, and it became very disillusioning. So it was an easy decision to say, look, there must be something that we need to do that's different. So it wasn't, I didn't start out with designing the culture. We started out by actually wanting to bring about change. And then as it's developed, the culture has become even more important.
Thank you. And Natalie, for you?
Yeah, definitely. Similar to Darryl in that respect around the organisation I'd previously worked for, I felt there was a huge focus from a sales and a profit perspective, and less so on the how, and very much around the community and the creativity. So for me, it was about actually amplifying some of those great attributes that were in the Big Four, that we loved about being in the Big Four, about talent and about exceptional people that we worked with, but also then really thinking about how we tweaked other elements of the culture that we wanted to establish. So we actually did very much set about not just thinking around what we wanted to do and how we wanted to change, but actually we did set out very early on. I guess as I preached to my clients about culture, that was very much core of what I wanted my business to be about. So we did very much craft that, and I can talk to you in a moment about what that looked like. But it was a balance for me around the hidden talent. I was a single mother in an organization where actually, I felt I was making some sacrifices on my home life, and my work and my home life was really starting to blur. So I felt that for me, on the partner track, was this really what I wanted to do? I also saw clients were actually reaching out for something quite different, something that was more outcome based and less of a leverage model. So really it was an opportune moment of exceptional, extraordinary talent that was starting to leave the Big Four, and also the change in need from a customer perspective, and bringing that together to offer something quite different.
And Alastair, to you, one thing that you may have heard Genio Piri from Dorchester Collection talking about this right at the start of the day, is he talked about that that stakeholder piece between the guest experience across his portfolio of hotel properties and the employee experience, and how they actually meld melded those together. Did you recognise that as you started out on this journey?
So I think, you know, and actually I like Darryl's story. Didn't start consciously thinking about the culture, role model and a better way of doing it. And I think, you know, the similarities between law and accountant, let's face it, were quite risk-averse professions, probably quite traditional, quite stuffy, and that's the kind of general perception. So I think, you know, for us, it was a semi-conscious concept around changing the culture as we were developing this new proposition, this new business. I think, you know, there's definitely a bit around the team and the engagement from the team and the clients that we have. And we actually say, you know, just despite all the we're really advanced in technology. And that was one of the disrupting things we took away and built when we set up Flinder. But actually, despite all the technology we're using, we are a people business, right? And people buy from people. It's about relationships. And so actually, in order to have really happy clients, you need to take a step and go, okay, what makes that? Well, actually, it's the team. So you need to have a happy team. And we think that the culture and the values are the kind of the oil that fuels that engine, which is the team, which then makes happy, satisfied clients. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling kind of flywheel effect, if you like. So I think when we set up, we absolutely saw a broken model between traditional accounting firms, probably Darryl can relate to this, and kind of in-house finance teams. And we've developed this third category in the middle that brings best of both attributes. But equally, on day one, I was at PwC for 60 or a Big Four for 16 years. I wore a suit pretty much every day. I didn't want to make our people have to wear something just because it was always that way. I want them to feel comfortable in their own skin. And actually, I care about the quality of work and their output, not how they look. And that was really important for us to instill, for people to feel like themselves, to get the best out of themselves to deliver to our clients. So that was really important to us.
And just to build on that, I mean, one of the questions that we've been asking during the sessions today is, you know, if there was one experiment, if there was one piece that someone could take back to their organization and, you know, test with, what would that be? Now, when you're setting up Flinder, then, you know, how do you test it? So you have the concept, how do you test it? How do you make that first stroke?
So we're a business of 25 people, and we've grown from zero, from 3 years ago, from just myself, my business partner, to 25 now. The first test of it is normally or historically it's come from kind of my ideas, those sort of my vision. I normally test it with my business partner. That's normally the first sense check. Is it something you think the team will be valued, or am I just kind of like in cuckoo land? Yeah, and that's actually the first sense check. And after that, then we start talking to other people in the business. Now we're a bit further on than we were 2 years ago. So 2 years ago we said, you know, on the unlimited holiday, let's roll it out. We were only 4 people when we trialed it, so we could trial it really easily. Does it work? Does it not work? We could retract it if we needed to. But now we're more than 20 people. We can't just roll these things out willy-nilly to trial them. So we do kind of dip our toes in the water, get some feedback from the team in terms of what they think, and then roll it out further. So it's about getting measured feedback from people, actually.
And can you give me as an example of one of those pieces that you've tested the water with? You know, it might have expanded or it might have not.
Yeah, so unlimited holiday was definitely one of the ones, you know, a few years ago where we just went for it, and there were only a few of us in the business. I think probably a more recent one would be around how we're interacting with our clients. So it's not necessarily a culture thing within the team, but it's how we're interacting with our clients, and we're wanting to share our client stories both with our team and with kind of you know, prospective clients as well. And so we first of all tested that with a couple of managers, got their input and their feedback, tweaked it maybe, went out to a small sample of our clients to get them to kind of engage in that process, and then now we're rolling it out much wider.
So there's a piece of storytelling within that as well, you know, how to capture the key elements of the experience and then to engage others with it. That's really interesting. Natalie, how about you? How did you, you know, you had this vision, you had this drive. I mean, that's so clear listening to you. But how do you go and test that concept?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess on all of those elements that Alastair said, really reaching out to I guess your peer level. I didn't have a business partner. I was the sole founder. So for me, it was reaching out to other entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurial networks, and, you know, part of the Goldman Sachs Small Businesses Program, and part of that, continuously learning. And I think that's what's great about small businesses is you're never complacent. You just keep thinking about, is there another way of doing this? What do my people need, and what is it about? But two key fundamentals for us was, one, my feeling that the concept of time and materials in consulting was outdated. I wanted to give a client an outcome. And to achieve that outcome, I would be very clear. So every time I'd go into conversations with clients, it's great that you want me to bring forward an organization design expert, but actually what you're trying to achieve. Let's focus on what you're trying to achieve, and I will give you a cost and a team that enables that. And at first, a lot of clients found it quite sort of tricky to get their heads around, because they're so used to big four and boutique consultancies that sold on time and materials. But what that enabled me to do is my team worked very flexibly. My whole foundation was providing a platform for this exceptional talent leaving big four that wanted something different. They have a side hustle, they're working parents, they might be, you know, yoga. I've got a yoga teacher, I've got a guy who has a wine business. I have all of these people that wanted something different out of life. To bring all those amazing skills and capabilities, we can do that in a flexible way if the client is very clear that they want an outcome. So you can nicely marry that up. So that was a real key foundation for me, it was delivering results and sustainable results, and bringing the expertise that are going to deliver it. So testing it with clients, helping them see the awareness, and just showing and demonstrating to them that they get so much more value if we take that approach.
And Darryl, for you and anyone that's followed the gunnercooke story and read your book, we have another author. We've mentioned a fair number of authors today. You know, for you, the way that you've built out the business, and also the way that you've continued to, just building on Natalie's point, the way you've continued to attract talent into the business because of your different model. Could you just talk us through that process of setup and growth, and this constant attraction you face as you bring new talent into gunnercooke?
Yeah, and I think it is interesting. I think the key is what Natalie mentioned. It's about mindset within the business. I mean, we actually only recruit anyone with the business, whether they're lawyers, management consultants, accountants, or our administrative people, on mindset, and everyone does a psychometric test. We don't mind failure. In fact, I could spend hours now telling you about all the things that we've failed on, but it kind of doesn't matter, because it's all about learning from those fails. But you need people who haven't got fixed mindsets, who don't say, yes, that's the way I've done it previously and that's we'll do it. We've constantly there's Carol Dweck talks about it, doesn't she? And Simon Sinek talks about this kind of infinite mindset, and that's really key in our culture. So we are very different. When we started off, we just made mistake after mistake, and we kind of hobbled along until we got things right. Now we're much more sophisticated. You know, innovation is one of our values, and we really take that seriously. We adopt an approach taken by Jeff Bezos at Amazon. So if an idea comes from someone, it will get discussed among a group of people. They put together a 6-page memo. They bring that memo to a kind of leadership group, which is a really diverse group of people with lots of different experiences. They sit quietly, they read it, and then they discuss it and they challenge it. And if it comes out positive, we'll take it away into a part of the business and we'll test it. So it's certainly didn't start off like that. That's definitely evolved. But, you know, innovation is really important to us as we continue to grow. I mean, and I think innovation is so key, Tim. I mean, I look at, when I go in John Lewis and M&S now, who are coming under so much pressure, and they're talking about corporate engineering and how they cut the costs and things like that. And I think, but I've hardly seen any innovation from you for years. You know, an innovation has to come from within, but you have to have a business process in order to draw it out of a company. And so how we started is very different from where we are now. We're now much more sophisticated in looking at innovation, and it's just a business process for us now.
And can I just ask for an example? Because what you're talking about is that failing forward approach, that openness to, we have to give things a go. And, I love the methodology that you're talking about there, but we understand that, in conservative organizations, and if you saw me smile when you said Marks and Spencer, because I spent the first 5 years of my career there. And in those conservative organizations, it's very difficult to create that spark of, or to listen to the spark of creativity. So rather than asking you about your successes, tell me about a failure. Tell me about something that you tried and it didn't work the way that you thought.
I tell you what, Tim, I'd love to do, but I have such a selective memory. I am really good at forgetting failures incredibly quickly. I mean, I could literally sit down and write a lot for you, how we tried to set up different in-house things in order to go to in-house and work with them. And also, there's just lots of different things. But I do have a very, I think it's very important to move on fairly quickly. And we never dwell on those failures. We never castigate anyone for failing. Just the opposite. We do have a mantra in the business where we say there's no such thing as failure. The only failure is not trying. So it's something that we very quickly leave behind and we focus going forward and on our successes. So if you ring me afterwards, I'll come up with one. But offbeat, I can't. I have to look up. I can't really.
I'm going to, because I think, Natalie, there was a hand movement then. I didn't know if that was a wave or a yes. I will take that.
I'm always very willing to share it and failures and accepting that, because I'm very much with Darryl in terms of the importance of sharing failures. And all my team will say about how having an open culture, and that open and transparent culture is really key. So I will share a personal one. Actually, was when I started my organization and I had a huge exponential growth. We went from 3 people to 15 in 4 months. And by the next year, we were at 25. And for me, I felt it was really important, although a lot of my team are associates, I felt it's very important that everyone was working for me the whole time. And I would think about supporting them by giving them internal work and when they're not on projects. But what I learned is the importance of actually letting them go and coming back to us as an organization and coming in and out of the organization, bringing more expertise, bringing more learning, because they had that sense of belonging at Wharton and they wanted to do that. But initially, I sort of took that as a personal, hang on a minute, I don't have a project for them. My whole ethos of it has to be the right match with the client work and the meaningful work and the individual. I was trying to orchestrate work internally. But so it was a personal learning, but also something that I very openly said, I got that wrong. And I see that actually now I have a much stronger sense of belonging with my team because they know that I support them. And if they need to come and go, that's okay.
Alastair, if you don't have a yoga instructor and a vintner in your team, then clearly that is part of next year's plan. But way to go. Is there anything that you could share in terms of learning through trial and error?
Yeah, and I think I certainly do, and I will do. But just to preface that, I think I've had the luxury of essentially going through this business model once before when I was at PwC. So I've actually seen and ridden some of the challenges that we had for the 3 years that I ran this business unit in PwC before I set up Flinder. And so actually we've come out from those lessons and learned from that and adopted and implemented our own ways of doing it. That's we've absolutely made mistakes along the way. And I think that the one's probably the biggest mistake we've learned from, but made repeatedly along that time, is hiring the wrong people, because we've needed bodies in the business. And despite our best efforts of saying, okay, we hire to our values, and one of our values is entrepreneurial, so very much like Darryl's, I guess, in innovation, and we have a whole process around that in the business, how we eke that out of people. We've gone, don't quite meet our values. They're good technically, but we really need someone. Let's just hire them, and it's more disruption than it's worth. And we've done it a number of times, and even after we've done it and learned from it and said, we'll never do it again, we've then gone through the interview process and had maybe even more touch points, taken someone out for lunch and said, okay, we've had more touch points, we can work with them. And then 6-9 months down the line, it's just been a catastrophe. And that's one thing that we've repeatedly made as mistakes, because it's a people business. You need bodies at a certain time. You don't want, as a young business, you don't want to say no to work. You want to keep going, you want to keep growing, but actually you need to take a step back and go, our values are important. We put them in place in our interview process. for a reason. We hire, like in our business, we hire to those values. Yes, they've got to be technically sound, but that's a given. But let's stick to the values, stick to what we believe, and don't get ourselves all stuck in the end. And that, I think, is what everybody wants to learn from. Everybody wants to listen. Everybody acknowledges. A lot of people still make those same mistakes, you know, time and time again. But that would be ours. Probably our biggest.
You've had all three of us nodding, and I'm guessing 350 people joining this conference over 2 days. I'm guessing you just got 350 nods, because I think we've. But thank you, because it's that, that honesty. I've always had a real issue at conferences when you just sort of listen to people talk about it, and everything slotted perfectly in all the way through, and you're going, you're not from my planet, it's you're telling the story in retrospect and missing out all of the swings and roundabouts along the way. So thank you for that. And Alastair, I mean, obviously technology is at the heart of your proposition and the way it creates. I was reading before, the rich management information that helps businesses to evolve. So how do you bring those two pieces together? The ways of working and the use of technology to create a different proposition.
So that's actually really difficult, and that's why we've struggled to recruit, because you not only need, I mean, being an accountant, and everyone will say this about their job, right? But being an accountant these days requires softer communication skills. It requires a lot of regulatory skills. It requires technology and data skills, data visualization, all those sorts of skills, very, very demanding. So it's very difficult to find someone that complements all those skill sets. We actually try to run, and we're developing an academy within Flinder called, well, part of it is called The Difference. In other words, the difference we make to our clients and the difference we make to our people's careers and what it's like joining Flinder. So we have this concept of an academy whereby we take the core skills that they have and run them through the Flinder way of doing things. And that's around the way they communicate, the way they might have to shadow someone more experienced, but also it's around more technical skills with the data visualization, with the data that comes from disparate accounting and EPOS and other technology systems, and harnessing that and kind of identifying it. But all the time it's about creating insight for clients. So it really is, not just the technology and data, but it's the translation, the storytelling, which is where the human being and the softer comm skills, communication skills comes into it. But that's about, because it's quite a rarity in terms of what other firms are doing. We're having to coach people through that in our own program internally.
And Natalie, for you, all three of you have this deep understanding of what you do, but you're seeking to then for that experience and the service of that to be different. So, just connecting to Alastair's point, how do you you talk about recalibrating for resilience, and how does that how does that process work when you've got that deep technical understanding, but you're then having to serve it and engage with your clients in a fresh and engaging way?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a couple of things there actually, Tim. So the first thing about when we talk about recalibration and we've actually pivoted and transformed ourselves as continuous learning, as you do, and we've launched a part of our organization called Wharton Ignite. And Wharton Ignite is about actually providing recalibration labs. It's about helping people now think about just stopping for a moment and going, what has worked during the pandemic? How can we support that into the future and what we're going to do as an organization? So we've been sharing insights. We've been helping them think about new ways of working, restructuring and their teams, either for growth or cost reduction. And as part of all of that, those labs, we bring insights to the fore. So to the point Alastair was saying as well around the importance of insights to our clients. So we have a lot of insights from leaders of occupational psychologists. You might have executive coaches. We have a lot of ex-Deloitte partners that work with us as well. And we bring them in with your problem statement and say, right, let us just for a moment stop and think through that problem statement from all perspectives and actually just try and help you accelerate you forward it's just a short, sharp recalibration and really thinking about what you need to do differently to go forwards. And that includes industry insights as well. So it's just short and sweet to help businesses really look at it as a way of moving forward. So that's what we do with our Insights Labs. But the other point you were saying around engaging and really leading people through this. So for those of you that joined us at the FCA event I did on Friday, that really, we talked about 3 core things that leadership need to do during the pandemic. And I'm a massive advocate of. One is diversity of thinking. And we, you know, as we've mentioned before, a lot of us talk about these concepts, growth mindset, diversity of thinking, but actually doing it. And for small businesses, the way that we can do that is either reverse mentoring, bringing juniors in. We run grad think tanks as well to bring that insight. They're not on our books the whole time, but we bring them in to help us think about fueling ideas for the future, as well as there is, for large organization, there's a wealth of insight in your organization. It's working collectively and collaboratively that you can release that and harness it. So diversity of thinking, really about collective intelligence and being collaborative, but also thinking about how you develop your leaders through this to really lead you through the change.
Thank you. Darryl, for you and your team, it might just be useful just to explain what's different about gunnercooke and how the innovation was at the heart of that, because I think the way that you've set the firm up, the roles, the business model are very different to what a lot of our delegates will have appreciated in the past. So would you just give an overview of that and explain how you've come to that way of working and thinking?
Yeah, so I mean, actually how it started was when, as I say, I became quite disillusioned in the traditional law firm, and I went out and I spoke to 56 CEOs, heads of legal, corporate financiers, bankers, and I asked them 2 questions. The first one, what did they dislike about lawyers, which is a very dangerous question, and I have reams of pages in answer to that. And then the second one was, what if you set up your own law firm, what would it look like? And there was nothing. There was next to nothing for that. So, and I kind of always remember this, I think at the time, Henry Ford said, if we'd ask the customer, we'd just have faster horses. So we came away, though, but from the things that they were saying, and we developed a model to meet that model. And a lot of it was, so first of all, they disliked the fact that they might start with a very senior lawyer and then it would be passed down to a junior lawyer. So our initial model, which is still very relevant, that we now have a young law firm separately, where we train young lawyers differently. But the initial model was every lawyer in gunnercooke has 10,000 hours of experience. So it's a very senior model to respond to that. The next criticism that was leveled at lawyers was fees, and it wasn't the size of fees; it was the lack of certainty over fees. You know, so saying it's going to cost £10,000, and then at the end saying, "I'm sorry, I've done twice as many hours, it's £20,000." So we came in with what we call certainty of fees. So our lawyers don't work on an hourly basis. They work out what it will cost and they give you a fee at the outset, and then they will stick to that fee. So that was that. And then the third thing was this, that lawyers aren't as commercial in their environment as some other people are. So we thought, well, how can we deal with that? And we came up with a model where lawyers actually have their own businesses. So they don't get a salary each month. So they become much more commercial because they have to be. So when they join gunnercooke, on day one, we say, you're no longer a lawyer, you're now a lawyer and a business person. And we therefore teach business skills. So we teach business development skills, but we teach client service skills. We teach everything that they need to know to run a business. So they become much more proficient in that. And as a result of it, they become much more commercial. So that was how the model started. That's still relevant. That model is still really relevant, but there's lots of other things along the way that have grown up alongside it.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And when you look to the, size of the firm now?
Well, there's 220 partners. There's about 400 people in total, because there's a young law firm of young lawyers, which we put through MBA training. We treat them differently. and then there's a management consultancy and operating partners, and then there's a foundation. We have a charitable foundation which is core to the business as well.
Just because everyone, a size of the growth that you've gone through. So now you're at that scale. When you look at the months, the months ahead, and obviously this is a very particular time. So what are your plans for as we close out 2020 and go into 2021? What's your plans for the business, and how is your unique culture at the heart of that?
And that is a really good question, Tim, and it is. So we've developed, particularly through lockdown, we've developed our new strategies. So we have offices in London, Manchester, Leeds, and we're opening one in Birmingham, but we're now opening specialist offices across the country in private equity and in sports initially. So we're looking at those specialist areas. We've taken the quality up higher all the time. So every lawyer now has their own personal NPS score. We think that's important. But we're opening our first international office in Germany, probably in October or November, and that will be the start of an international strategy. So the growth, is getting stronger and will continue, and we're very focused on that. The key is the culture, and we design. I always think every organization's got a culture. It's up to you to design it and make it what you want it to be. And so we set off very early designing what that culture is. We had a formula that drove the business called 4+4 + 1 + Y, which is our 4 target, our 4 goals, our 4 values, our purpose, and kind of why we exist. And we built on that and developed a culture book. And the culture book must have, 150 things in it, because it's those small things that create the culture. So we have to continue. We have one of the values is we call nudge. So we say we won't put fruit at eye level. We'll put fruit at eye level, but we won't ban junk food. So we always have to bring people along with us, and that is the real challenge as we grow, bringing people along with us so we maintain that culture.
That's really insightful. Thank you, Natalie. Would you build on that, please, in terms of what you see the coming months requiring from your business and how your culture will be crafted? To Darryl's point, we all have a culture. Helps if we know what it is and we're actually doing it with purpose and intent. How are you seeking to perform against those opportunities?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, culture is the foundation of everything we do, and as I advise clients on it, very much so, the importance of culture and the power of culture and pushing you forwards as an organization is paramount. And we've seen that in the pandemic. We've seen organizations who have really put their people first and put their customers first, and in great examples of how that has pushed them forward. So the business case for the importance of culture is here and for everyone to see. I was reading an article this morning. I think I know in your last panel we talked about Gallup, but there was also the best workplace stats that they gave, that everyone's engagement scores have on average gone up 12% from this time last year to this year. I know an organization that went from 60 to 80%, and another organization that talks about their productivity has gone up by 108%. So the importance of culture is very much there to be seen. And I think organizations are seeing the power of that. For us, we continuously look at where we're trying to get to, what's our strategy, and what are the behaviors that are going to enable that to drive us forward. That is obviously going to continue to evolve. The principles by which you work and your values will stay the same. So for us, it's insight, outcomes, challenge, and very much collaboration. They stay the same, but the nuances of how that plays out and what that looks like is going to continue to evolve. So for us, we have Wharton BC is very much on the sort of core consulting offerings that we provide. We've just launched Wharton Ignite. That's to help challengers or small businesses that just want a little accelerator. They don't want an off-the-shelf sort of huge playbook of activity. They just want a little nudge to help them with a business problem. So that's how we've pivoted on that. As we grow as an organization, we'll continue to respond to our clients' needs to really look at how does that support that, and ultimately underneath that, how we behave as a business will continue to evolve.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And Alastair, for you, when you look at as I say, getting through the next the months, and I thought in the previous session, with Ali Mohammed talking about the what he expected from a NHS perspective in terms of what we will be facing within our society. It's really challenging for all of us. How do you see your organisation performing, and how are you preparing for the months ahead?
So I think, we've heard the word uncertainty a lot in the last 6 months. There is an element of uncertainty. I think if you go back maybe a month, 6 weeks, businesses, SMEs, they thought there was a lot more certainty. They thought they could see the end in sight, and actually there was a lot more. There still is a lot more upbeat in kind of the businesses we talk to, the sentiment surveys that we see. Despite what the journalists say, there's a lot more confidence in the economy. I think there's still an element of uncertainty. We've got a transition plan, or had a transition plan back into an office. That might be thrown out the window. But we were doing a weekly, 1 day a week in the office as a kind of social, kind of collaborative exercise with everyone getting together. We started that. We're going to continue it for now. But I think the thing that we need to remain agile to change, and we need to take that and adapt as quickly as we have done in the last 6 months. So I think that's really key in terms of kind of the way we approach it with our team. One of the things that's really important to our culture and what we do as a team is we go skiing annually as a team. We were a week away from that in March, and the French resorts got closed, and it's a big cultural event for our team to bond together, to cook with each other, to help each other down the slopes that don't know, and just generally be together and work organically as a team, not in a forced build a raft environment or in a working environment. It breaks down barriers. It's really important. We were looking forward to going in March, and now that's a big question mark. Of course, there are some much bigger kind of problems around in the world than going skiing, but that's a cultural event which we have to then reconsider. How do we knit the team together from a cultural perspective?
Difficult to have a team ski holiday online. It's slightly tricky. I just want to say thank you so much to all three of you. There's so many insights there in terms of just so many examples. But Darryl talking about the future of his profession, and I'm really concerned when I look at the announcement this morning in terms of levels of unemployment, but the over-indexing in terms of youth unemployment, and the opportunities for people coming into all of your sectors, all of your professions. So that focus on the future, the focus on how you're creating really sticky and characterful and quirky cultures that with that real focus on the mindset, the application, the way we work, not the what we do, that you're seeking to create. So I just want to thank all three of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your approaches. Congratulations on the acknowledgement of the work, and we will look forward to seeing what the months and years ahead bring, and your continued success. So again, this is the point when you imagine the rapturous reception of the hall full of people. Thank you for your insights. Thank you all.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Tim.